Hey y'all, it's True Review here, back once again with another top 10 list. This time we're looking at the 10 best games that screwed with us by breaking the fourth wall. As usual, some ground rules before we start. This list is aimed more at those games that were consistent at breaking the fourth wall, rather than games that only broke the fourth wall once or twice, regardless of how good the break was. Once again, this list is limited to 10 places only, so not every fourth wall breaking game will make it on here. And finally, this list will contain spoilers, so at the start of each entry, if you hear the name of a game you haven't played yet, then you are free to skip past it. But with that all said, let's get this list rolling, aight? Conker, Live and Reloaded. Though the original Nintendo 64 version is what everyone remembers, and indeed that game wasn't afraid to deal out some damage to the fourth wall every now and then as well, it must be remembered that the HD remake of Conker's Bad Fur Day went even further than the original, by adding in even more fourth wall breaking moments. Most notably right at the start of the game, where Conker realises that a part of the level has been redesigned since the first version, leaving him confused as to what's going on. Pony Island! Don't let the name of this game fool you. If you're hoping for a game that features colourful meadows where ponies are frolicking, then you've come to the wrong place. In this game, you play the part of a retro arcade gamer who's playing a game where you have to navigate your pony past obstacles. But you soon realise that there is more going on here than meets the eye, as this game turns into a battle of wits between yourself and the devil. Your best means of attack involves trying to find creative ways of breaking the game and breaking the rules, while the antagonist does the same. This game even has a mechanic that sends you false messages from your own friends list on Steam, making you think that people are messaging you outside of the game. And all of this is just for starters, as there is loads more waiting for you here. If you haven't bought yourself a copy of this game yet, then I strongly recommend that you do. Kid Icarus, Uprising. Despite not looking like it on the outside, Uprising does enjoy taking shots at the fourth wall every now and again, including complaints about the game's own mechanics, the mention of loading screens, referring to bosses as bosses, as well as commenting on the title of the game itself. The main reason why this game is lower on this list compared to some is mainly because these jokes do get a little old after a while, and it seems that the further into the game you go, the less intelligent they get. But that doesn't change the fact that this game loves giving the fourth wall grief, and so here it is at number 8.
Lane Goodman.
7!
Undertale! Despite being one of the funniest video games that I've ever played, it must be noted that Undertale has a lot more going on for it beneath its wacky exterior. Every encounter with a character or foe is recorded by the game, as is how you deal with each enemy. Though you will encounter aggressive creatures and enemies, this game doesn't force you to fight or kill any of them. The option to kill is there, but so is the option of talking your way out of it. In fact, it's possible to finish this game without killing anything, or even leveling up once. However, on most of our first playthroughs, we're naturally going to go for the kill because this is a video game and what do you expect of us? Of course we're going to go for the kill and try and level up as much as we can. That's where this game shines. If you did go for the violent approach, the game will quite often take a sad turn for the worse, questioning the player on why they chose the path of blood in the first place, instead of trying to resolve things in a peaceful manner. This is a game that will judge the player for how they are playing the game, as much as it does trying to tell a story, and it must be said that the main character of Undertale is not the kid we're playing, but it's the player themselves that are the hero, or anti-hero, depending on how you approach it.
Take me down, 6 underground.
Spec Ops The Line. What starts off as a bland, typical third-person modern shooter with nothing going for it, soon begins to take a turn for the worst, or maybe it's for the best in terms of enjoyment now that I think about it. As the game eventually reveals to the player that the antagonist here is actually you, seeing as all the enemies you've encountered before were either attacked by you first or were just innocent civilians, it puts a spotlight on the main character's morals and state of mind. However, go deeper and something even more mind-blowing is waiting to blow your mind. As the main character's actions are called into question, we start to realise that the game isn't really shining a light on who we're playing as. The one under suspicion here is actually you, the player. Your squad might think of your character as a monster, but it was really you who gave the order to shell those civilians, to shoot those friendlies. You did it because this is a video game and all of these things are fun. However, much in the same way as Undertale, Spec Ops: The Line tries to demonstrate how destructive and merciless the mindset of a video game player is if that attitude was applied in real life.
Wanna make you mine, better get in line. 5, 6, 7, 8.
Deadpool! What? Like, seriously, what do you want me to say? It's Deadpool we're talking about here after all. Grass grows, birds fly, and Deadpool breaks the fourth wall. Anyone who is familiar with this character should know full well what to expect from this game. He starts off in your face about it before taking it one step too far. But unlike most characters, who will then start to wind it back in, once Deadpool goes too far, he continues to go too far. Even going as far as rewriting the game's script, calling up his own voice actor and getting into an argument with him, and continuously turning to the camera and talking to the player directly. Much like with Kid Icarus, this game's humour does begin to get stale after a while, without it letting up even for a moment. However, it must be said that if there was ever a game that had a grudge against the fourth wall, then Deadpool is right up there. Up there at number 5 to be exact. The Stanley Parable! Despite how much I adore this game, I would admit that it's not really a game, or at the very least it's not a game in the traditional sense. There's no real objective here, that is if you don't really want one to be there. The Stanley Parable is not trying to tell you a story, it's trying to make a point. You play the part of Stanley, an ordinary office worker. But one day, you realise that everyone in the office has disappeared, and all of this is told to the player by a disembodied narrator who comments on what you do. However, despite having someone telling you what you're supposed to do, that doesn't mean that you have to do any of it. The first choice you come across is a room with 2 doors. The narrator tells you to pick the left door. However, there is nothing stopping you going through the right-hand door. As the game progresses, you'll be faced with many more choices, and you are entirely free to do whatever you like and go against what the game is telling you to do. Doing so will lead to some very strange outcomes, such as the narrator trying to kill you, or walking into a part of the game that hasn't even been loaded yet. Even to this day, I'm still finding new ways of breaking this game's narration. But none of this is that difficult when you remember that this game wants you to break it. If the Stanley Parable ever had one clear objective, then that was to encourage the player to break the fourth wall. In fact, I don't even think there is a fourth wall in this game. I couldn't find one. Metal Gear Solid! No-brainer. No-brainer, ladies and gentlemen. No-brainer. And this series hates the fourth wall with a passion. Probably the most famous moment from this series was our encounter with Psycho Mantis, who was able to read our memory cards and tell us which games we've been playing. However, there were many other great moments from this series too, such as in Metal Gear Solid 4, where Otacon tells Snake that he needs to insert disc 2 in order to continue, before remembering that this game is being played on a PS3. Or in Snake Eater, where Snake has that nightmare, which allows us to play a hack and slash game. The Metal Gear Solid series is just jammed full of fourth wall breaking moments, and many of which are both strange and hilarious. The Zero Escape series! I can't honestly give this entry to one game in particular, so the entire Zero Escape franchise is going on this list. When experiencing this series for the first time, you'll undoubtedly notice the flowchart in the options menu. This feature acts as a choose-your-own-adventure mechanism that allows you to go back to certain key moments in order to make different choices that will inevitably lead to different events occurring, as well as completely different endings. However, the fourth wall gets completely and utterly shattered when this very mechanic starts getting referred to within the story. I don't think anyone can forget that moment in Virtue's Last Rewards where Fire remembers a choice you made in a different timeline, completely making our jaws hit the floor when we realise that the act of accessing the story's flowchart is also a part of the story. The Zero Escape series is one of the only gaming series that I'm aware of that incorporates the use of its own options as a story element, and so here it is at number 2, which means that... Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem takes the number 1 spot on this list, and what an excellent game to take it too. Though many of us are put off of this game due to it being a horror, I'd say that it's more atmospherically creepy than downright scary. However, most of the terrors don't actually come from monsters or enemies. It mainly comes from the game's sanity meter. A meter that decreases every time you witness an enemy, and which needs to be tended to in the same way you maintain your health. If left unchecked, your character will begin to hallucinate, making enemies appear when in fact there's no one there, having the volume on your TV turned down, and even the game pretending to crash. When added up, all of this leaves the player in a very unique state of mind, where we quite literally have no idea what's going on, leaving even those with nerves of steel feeling uncomfortable and freaked out about playing this game for another second. Most games break the fourth wall to entertain us. Eternal Darkness breaks the fourth wall to frighten us, and it did a damn good job of it, and that's why Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem is in at number 1 on this list. And that's it for this video folks, but if you're trying to break the fourth wall to frighten us as well, then like this video and subscribe to this channel. Don't forget that there's Twitter where you can find out all of the latest True Review news and updates, and there's also Patreon if you'd like to support this channel further. And with that done, I'm getting out of here. See ya!
This life is killing me. I swear sometimes I think there's